in the image of God. Both Adam and Eve were created in his image. They were created to reveal God's glory. They were to work together here on the earth. They had a sameness in that purpose, but God created Eve for a special reason. And after they were created, he said his creation was very good. Up until that point, he had always said it was good. But after we were created, after Adam and Eve were created, he said it was very good. And so they were set apart from the rest of creation, and they were given a fruitful and multiply, to rule and to reign and to cultivate the earth. But in that mandate, Eve had the unique part of bringing life into the world. In Genesis 3:20, she was named Eve, which means mother of life. She is the very first mother. But we also know that because of her sin, childbirth and bringing children into the world would be a struggle, it'd be painful, and it'd be work. And it's easy, so easy to get wrapped up in when we think about Eve, is to only think about that failure. But that would be to miss the beautiful parts of the story. Knowing her failure, she continued to fulfill the mandates that God had placed in her life, even though it would be painful. So there is beauty in the obedience. There's boldness in doing what is right, even in the pain that it will cause. John 16:21 puts it this way: when a woman is given birth, she has sorrow because her hour has come. But when she has delivered the baby, she no longer remembers the anguish for the joy that a human being has been born into the world. And I just never really thought about that part of the story, how she had failed, but she still got to continue the mission that God had for her. And even though it was more painful than maybe it would have been if they got to stay in the garden, she was still faithful when God was faithful to her to continue that mission. I don't know about you, but I was super excited to become a mom. Mother of all human beings. So women are pretty incredible. Each one of us are incredible for many reasons. Motherhood, we get to pour out our lives for others. Sometimes it's our children. Sometimes it's nieces and nephews, family members, neighbors, friends, whoever it may be. Each one of us are pouring out our life to make sure that our families run well. And most importantly, we carry the baton of faith and we pass that down to those that we love. What a gift God has entrusted us with, to selflessly help our families. I know that doing the dishes maybe doesn't seem selfless, but it is. And it's nice when they get older because they can help do the dishes. But we get to pass down that faith that we have in God. And I want to say to us as women, you are celebrated, you are cheered, you have given selflessly, and now continue to pass that faith on to others. I know as you guys are sitting here, maybe you are at a point in your life where all the pieces have come together. And if you are in that season of life where everything is just looking beautiful, the horizon is nice and sunny, you need to really celebrate that time in your life. It's a glorious place to be. But maybe, and there's probably more of us in this season, our puzzle pieces maybe feel like they're scattered all over the place. Matter of fact, on social media, I saw that somebody was laughing because they actually found a puzzle piece in their toaster, and it was the last piece they needed to finish their puzzle. What an interesting place. I can only imagine how it got there. But if your puzzle pieces are scattered, And this maybe isn't what you were hoping life would look like. This is a beautiful place to be too. Maybe you don't feel like it, but trust me, it's a beautiful place, because sometimes in those moments is when we are most desperate for God. I've been in a wilderness, and on this side of it, I can say it is a blessing. So if that's where you're at this morning, don't dismay, because eventually your pieces will be put back together by a loving God who is directing you down a path. So continue to trust in him. So women, I hope you know how loved and appreciated you are this morning. And now we're going to move in to the hard part of the service. The subject at hand. Kelly has done a great job teaching us about authority. And I don't know about you, but my toes have been stepped on a little bit in this series. And I try to be someone who's honorable and who shows honor, but I can see that there has been times that I've definitely missed the mark. And it's such an amazing thing to see how being under God's authority is really such a beautiful place to be. And if you are struggling with this subject matter, today's lesson isn't going to be any easier, but don't give up. Keep leaning in, and remember, we are all on a journey. Just when I think I have figured it out, God reveals more truth bombs to me that I need to learn. And I'm just going to tell you, my kids love it when I talk relevant like that, so you're welcome. Truth bombs. But we're all on this journey together, and to get there, we all have to give each other grace, because we're all figuring it out at different times. And so we need to have these lessons to help us get us to where we need to be. So today we're talking about authority in the family. And one thing that I have said often is, if our children can't respect us, how will they be able to respect a God who they cannot see? It's really hard, because God asks us to do some pretty interesting thing. I mean, you can look through all out the Bible, from Abraham being asked to sacrifice his son, Moses leading the people across the Red Sea. All those things seemed impossible. And if you didn't have that trust and honoring God, people in the Old Testament and New Testament, they wouldn't have acted on the things that God is asking them to do. And so we have to be able to help our kids see how important it is to move towards that. And so it starts with our kids learning to respect and honor us, so that they can trust a God who asks us to do some pretty impossible things. Just like we don't always understand what God is asking, our kids don't always understand why we say no or yes to different things. Isaiah 55, 8-9 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declare the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." We don't always understand what God is asking, but if he's asking, we need to move. Same with our kids. They're not always going to understand why we're giving them the answers that we do, but if they honor us, they're going to learn to trust that we have their best interest at heart. So our job is to keep our kids safe. It's a layer of protection. We are imperfect parents just trying to do our best to raise our kids and provide authority and protection in their life. One of my favorite things that I have gotten to teach here at LifePoint to the kids is the 10 Commandments. Now, Kelly and I joke because I actually like rules and boundaries, and he actually doesn't so much. So I always tease him. I'm like, I like rules. I think they're great. But these rules, or these commandments that God has given us, they provide direction and safety. But the older I get and the longer I have studied these 10 Commandments, I really have just found them so interesting in the way that God has designed even the layout of the 10 Commandments. The first 4 commandments teach us about our relationship with God. So commandment number 1 is to put him first. And honestly, if we could just keep him first in our lives, all the rest of the 10 Commandments are so much easier to follow when we get the first one right. When he is first, it's easier, not always easy, but easier to do the rest. Number 2 says, have no idols. So most of us don't go around making idols anymore these days, but we make a lot of things idols in our life, namely our reputation. Sometimes that keeps us from doing the very thing that God is calling us to do because we don't want to look foolish. Other things are money. Our families can be idols, our kids, our work, even our independence. All of these things can be more important than God if we're not careful. And then, of course, we have 3, do not use the Lord's name in vain. And number 4, keep the Sabbath day holy. All of these are teaching us about our relationship with God. And then the very next commandment is honor your father and mother. And I love this because God is telling us if we get these first 4, these next 6 are going to be easy. And if we get this next one, this number 5, if we can honor our parents, it's going to keep us even more in line to follow the next commandments. Do not kill, do not steal, don't lie, don't covet. I'm missing one. Pastor Kelly? Oh, I should stay faithful to your spouse. I should have written those all in my notes. Anyway. So if you start with the first one, put God first, and then you skip to that fifth one, honor your father and mother, it's going to be so much easier to help our kids follow the next 5 commandments. I think it's really interesting that God, he's so creative in his design that he even designed the order of those 10 commandments for our good. And those last 5 commandments really talk about our behavior in the community. And if we're not doing those things, we're going to have a much better social fabric for us all to live in. And so for us parents, it's to guide and direct them into correcting them when they miss the mark, because we're all going to miss the mark at times. I remember one time, and I've told the kids this back in kids' church, that, you know those old igloo water fountain things, and you would have the little cone cups, and you would get water and drink it because they didn't have drinking fountains as much back then, back in the 80s. And I didn't think I was stealing. I thought I was I took a whole sleeve of cups out to my car because I was so excited to make a craft with these cups. And my mom sees me walking out of the Christian bookstore with all of these cups, and she's like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm going to make crafts when we get home. She's like, you're stealing. I'm like, no, I'm making crafts. She's like, you're stealing, and you're going to go back in there and take those cups back and tell them that you took these cups. I was like, no. But it's the best thing she ever did, because I walked in, I gave the cups back. No, nothing happened, except for my pride was a little hurt. But I never thought about taking something from the store again. And so we as parents, if our kids honor us and trust us enough to guide them, we're going to keep them from a lot of heartache down the road. So I kind of got off my notes a little bit, but God's design was so intricate in even the order of the 10 commandments. And the 5th commandment is the only one that comes with a promise. So Exodus 20:12 says, honor your father and mother so that you may live long in the land that the Lord is giving you. So when we follow this commandment, he is going to give us a long life in the land, the promised land that he has given us, meaning that you will have a good life, not a life without trouble. We're going to experience trouble, and we need that trouble. But God's promise is that if you will have a good life if you honor your parents. And sometimes that good life is just peace. It's not feeling alone as you walk through the wilderness. And so it's so important. If you build a society that honors its parents, your society will survive. Without honor, society will be doomed to self-destruction. If this doesn't describe our current situation in our culture, I don't know what else does. Children, even adult children, that are focused on honor will have a good life. Without honor, we will see destruction, death, and chaos. And this is death in relationships, chaos in your everyday, difficulty around every corner. And this is why honoring our parents is so important. Parents, this begins with us. We need to set the stage. We have to expect honor from our kids, and we also need to live in an honorable way. And some ways that we fail as parents is we exchange friendship with our kids for the honor that we deserve because we don't want to be seen as a negative authority in their lives. I'm not sure why we think authority is negative, but I hear a lot of parents sometimes like, ooh, I don't really want to get onto them for that, or I don't want them to see me in this negative light. But it is great to have friendship with our kids in appropriate settings, but not at the expense of being their parent. We must be a parent first. Proverbs 29:17 says, discipline your son, and he will give you rest. He will give you delight to your heart. How many of us know that I'm thankful for the discipline of my parents and the Lord in my life? And then the peace that it gives to my parents. Another mistake we make as parents is when we seek to be loved and not honored. So children need discipline. They need us to expect that honor. And I don't know about you, but giving honor where it is due helps children to recognize there is a moral authority above us to whom we are morally accounted to. It's not just about us. It's about God and what he is expecting of us. And that morality, the moralness of our society is so important that each one of us is doing our part. And so honor is important. It is difficult to come to honor God if we don't learn to honor our parents. John 5:23 says that all may honor the Son just as they honor the Father. Whoever does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. We see honor of authority all throughout Scripture. And because God had the perfect design in mind, he created families. Unfortunately, because of sin, the family unit has been broken down. And honestly, it's not celebrated or fought for anymore. Kids, once again, even adult kids, you may be hung up on the fact that you don't think your parents deserve honor. And I get it, and I don't. Let me explain. There are times that I definitely, possibly maybe, dishonored my parents, and I felt justified. Because maybe I didn't think they were being fair. I didn't like what they were saying. I didn't like their reasoning. But that is not a reason to dishonor your parents. Many of us don't actually have an excuse to dishonor our parents. Being annoyed, thinking things are unfair, disliking their personality, those are not reasons to dishonor. We do like to justify that anything that is offensive, anything we don't like is reason enough for dishonor. But according to God, it is not. One of the most consistent ways God teaches us to honor our parents is through obedience. Colossians 3:20 says, children, obey your parents in everything, for it pleases the Lord. It's pretty cut and dry. Obey your parents in everything. It pleases the Lord. Ephesians 6:1 says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. It doesn't say, if your parents are doing everything right, then honor them. It says, honor them, obey them. Now, that is not to say if there is actual abuse or toxic behavior, we can still show honor, but it may be in different actions, such as setting some pretty strict boundaries or removing yourself from the situation. Again, remember the rule, we honor authority unless they are leading us into sin or disobedience to God. And so if you are dealing with a toxic, and we have to be so careful, because in this day and age, we label everything very, very quickly as toxic or abusive just because we don't like it. And so we really have to know the difference. We have to be careful because we don't want to give ourselves an excuse to dishonor, because that's going to lead us down to trouble down the road. And so if it's actually toxic or abusive, you may need to report it to make things safe. But you have to report it to an authority that can actually help you make those things safe. But even in those circumstances where there is abuse or toxic behavior, you can still be honorable. And one of those things that you can do is you can refuse to talk bad about the person, the parents, to anyone and everyone that will listen. We may need to inform people to keep them safe, but it is not an opportunity to vent all of the trouble to everybody. Ephesians 4:29 says, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as it fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. So in those situations, and even in situations that you maybe have been offended, or whatever the case may be, you need to do everything possible so that that relationship can be reconciled based on your behavior. That you have not made things worse, that you have not opened a door to more sin, so you still have the opportunity to honor even in those most difficult of situations. Hebrews 6, 1 through 3 is really a great chapter on this. Chapter 6, verse 1 says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with the promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth." And I just want to take a second. Just look at that word, enjoy. Not survive, not make it to the next milestone, but to enjoy your life. That's what honor does. When you are honoring the authority in your life, it opens the door for you to really enjoy life. You may not enjoy that circumstance, but you're going to enjoy life. And let me tell you, my family tends to live into their 90s. I want to make sure I'm enjoying life. But now here's the part for parents. This is some really good advice too. Hebrews 6:4 says, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." And I think that brings such a balance because, yes, we need our kids to honor us, but we need to live honorably. We need to give our kids good things. Our Heavenly Father gives us good gifts, and then we need to extend that to our children. And so I love that word exasperate because I'm pretty sure my kids have felt exasperated at times. But it's that going past that we might have a moment where we're like, but we also have moments where we laugh and we enjoy each other and we sit at the table. Sometimes begrudgingly we sit at the table, but we do it and we have conversations. And those things are so important too. We should want to be good parents to our kids, not giving everything they want. But ultimately, to do this, we need to lean on the Holy Spirit to guide us as parents. Because I don't know about you, but I didn't get my kids with a manual telling me how to do everything with them. Sometimes it's been touch and go, learn as we go, figure it out down the road. But God tells us to bring everything to Him in prayer. After all, really, He's just loaning us our kids for this time being. So our kids belong to Him. And ultimately, He knows what is best. There's another reason why honor is so important. Now, I am not good with big words because Kelly can say the Greek and the Hebrew and all this kind of stuff. I can't even say big American words, English words sometimes. But honoring parents is the best antidote to, and I practice this word, but now that I'm standing here, I'm like, I know I'm going to mess it up. Totalitarianism, something like that. Yeah. So, we're going to keep moving. What is that? I'll just say that instead of trying to say the word again. It is a society where the state or government diminishes the role of the parent and wants allegiance to the state. Once again, people, we need to have our eyes open. We need to remember what God's design is, and that design is that parents receive the honor. We are the ones responsible to raise our kids. This is God's best design. Each parent needs to take that seriously. In our generation, we see so many things happening. Authority is just despised at every level. Criticism of police, parents called morons, just watch the Disney Channel. Parents are not celebrated. Presidents are called stupid. Pastors, anytime we disagree, are called false teachers. We are living in a culture of rebellion, a culture of dishonor, and it opens up the door to witchcraft and chaos. And when we despise authority, we cut ourselves off from God's blessing. So, we need to remember that the culture of the kingdom is honor. And so, we are called to honor God and our earthly parents. And this is why we should show honor regardless. And actually, we had an impromptu talk about authority Wednesday night with the kids, and it was really interesting. And some of these same points are here in this lesson. Dishonor reveals more about you than it does about the person you are dishonoring. A lot of times we may feel differently about the situation, but people looking in on the situation are only going to see your rebellion. They're going to see that you are fighting against authority. And so you have to be careful when you're dealing with authority of how you look to the people and what your attitude is. Dishonor reveals more about your character than their conduct. So I had a teacher once that I was working with, and I was a para. She had been a special ed teacher for 20 years. So, I think she knows what she's talking about. And as I was dealing with the kid, she kind of came in and switched things up, and she gave that kid to another para to work with, and I was feeling frustrated. I really felt disrespected and felt like she had kind of cut my legs out from under me, but she had always said, if you have a question, come and talk to me. So I could have went and been like, hey, why did you do that? Or why are you acting that way? But that would have revealed more about my character, because her job was to make sure those students were learning and in a good environment that they could get their work done. So I just went to her and I said, hey, you said I could always come and ask if I had any questions about anything you did, and I don't understand why you took the kid away from me. And she's like, he wasn't going to work for you today. He was done with you. And so I wanted him to get his work done, so I moved into another teacher. And we're going to deal with all the issues surrounding that, but for that moment, that kid needed a break. And I trusted her to lead me and to guide me in that. And so when we go at our authority in a disrespectful way, that's not going to change anything, but it's going to reveal your character and how you handle things. Dishonor doesn't help them, and it doesn't help you. Dishonor, and I've asked my kids this sometimes when they're talking about a situation, I'm like, and did that help when you talked back to your teacher? Well, no. Did it help when you got sassy with your mother? I can answer that one, no. Dishonor rarely makes a situation better, but honor can unlock blessings that will change your life and quite possibly change their life and the situation. Dishonor will destroy your future. It will destroy your future. Because once again, it's revealing what's in your heart. Dishonor is destructive and will delay God's blessing in your life. Honor is actually an attitude. And I just made up a new word, honitude. I just did that right here on the spot. Hey, you guys are welcome. That's actually what I do a lot of times. I combine words. So Ryder and Reese used to be Rice and Reader. So there you go. Honor is an attitude, and it opens the door to God's blessings. The key is to have a great attitude towards the authority in your life. You can't just sit there and say, if my parents would do the right thing, then I would give them honor. No, your blessing is dependent on your ability to honor, regardless of their actions. We are responsible for our actions and attitudes. So adjust your attitude even when you are under flawed authority. And here's my favorite part, because raise your hand if you're a parent and you've ever made a mistake as a parent. You've disciplined too harshly, then the next time not harshly enough, and they sassed you in front of everybody, and you're just standing there like, we all make mistakes. But the best thing we can do is to cover flawed authority with prayer. Your foundation for a successful future is built on how you choose to show honor towards your parents. So, if you have been raised in a God-fearing home, you are ahead of the game, and this should be celebrated. However, don't be discouraged if you are not raised in a Christian home with godly values. Do not despair. And this is actually exciting. You get the privilege of laying that foundation for the next generation. You get to do that. Kelly talks all the time about his grandmother that changed the trajectory of his family's life. She is viewed with so much honor because of the path that she directed her family down. That can be you. You get to do that. Will it be difficult? Absolutely. But it will be oh so worth it. Today, I want to wrap up with this concept. If you see your parents honor their parents, no matter how difficult it may be, the chances are far greater that your children will honor you. How you treat your parents will be a mirror reaction of how your kids honor you. I've had the privilege of watching this in action this year. Both my mom and Kelly's mom lost their moms at the beginning of this year. It's been a privilege. I probably should have warned my mother-in-law I was going to talk about this, but it's been a privilege to watch my mother-in-law care for her mom. I can't even see my notes. Nancy has been caring for her mom for several years, and at the end of 2022, she moved her mom into her house so that she could be her full-time caretaker. She has gone above and beyond in caring for her mom. She has sacrificed, she's bent over backwards, survived nights with little sleep, remodeled her home, taken one for the team with little appreciation, and so much more. Was all of this expected or demanded or deserved? Did she have to do it? No. But because Nancy is a woman of honor, she cared for her mom in her final days with no regret. This impact, of course, was huge for her mom. She got to die peacefully with her daughters beside her in a comfortable place. But the impact was far greater. Her kids and her grandkids saw that honor play out before their eyes. I also saw this same scenario, and I should have warned her too, with my friend Shelly, who did the same thing for her dad in his final days. Yes, there was sacrifice and stress and all the things and still raising a family. But the reward for honor is never overlooked. And it's never one-dimensional. Each decision we make has an impact. And you've heard the saying, more is caught than taught. Kids hear what you say, but more than anything, they're watching how you live. So today, moms, we have a special gift for you. Actually, for all the ladies as you leave today. And I just want to say thank you to Angie and Dana for putting that all together. They have these little teacups for you, and I'm probably giving away the surprise, but I kind of wanted to talk about a teacup for just a minute. Probably about 13 years ago when my dad's mom passed away, there was her china floating around, and nobody really wanted it, and they asked if we wanted it, and I was like, I don't know if I want more dishes cluttering up my house, but I went ahead and I took that china. And honestly, I never saw my grandma use this china. We only ate out when we went to grandma's house. We never used the china, but it was always displayed in her hutch. I think it made her just feel fancy. No matter where she lived, she had this china in her hutch. But my little girl loved that china set. She loved the teapot and the teacups and having tea parties. And I thought about the generations of hands that have delicately held those teacups. And maybe back when my grandma was younger, maybe she had people to her home and they used that teacup. And then we used it, and we've used it with friends, sometimes family. And I think about the passing down of that teacup from generation to generation. And as I have stated, we had grandparents that passed away, grandmas that passed away this year. And when I sit on the couch that was Gigi's, it makes me think of her. And when Rhett makes Sam all the yummy breads and desserts with the KitchenAid from my grandma, those things are special, but not as much as the memories and the faith that they continue to pass down to us through generation. So I'm thankful for the things that we have from our grandmas, but I'm thankful for the lessons that they've taught us and the faith that they have passed down. Your kids are watching. Your kids need you to be honorable. And you need to teach your kids to be honorable. I hope today as you take that teacup that you will remember to pass down your faith to those around you. John 3 John 1:4 says, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. I love all of you, but I want to see my kids in heaven. I want my kids to know about authority and honoring it because I want them to have a good life. That's what we should want and desire for our kids. And today, if you don't know Jesus, it's hard to pass down something you don't have. So I want to give you the opportunity to get to know Jesus today. I'm telling you, in my darkest hours, I've needed him. When things are going well, sometimes I need him even more. I fight for that independence, and I'm reminded that I need to be so dependent on God. So I just want us to bow our heads. And if you want to just pray this prayer silently, we're going to pray for a few things. We're going to pray that we can be honorable because our kids' futures are dependent on it. We're also going to pray that we can know the Lord so deeply and so richly that Satan cannot confuse us. And also that we'll come to know the Lord in a very real and tangible way. God, I thank you so much for today. I thank you for the difficulty. I thank you for the times that it's been hard to be a good parent. I thank you for the times that I've had to be challenged by my own attitude towards somebody. God, I pray right now, if there is anybody in this room who doesn't know you, God, that today they would take that step to ask you to be the Lord of their life. That they would just pray, Jesus, come into my heart and change me, and help it to not just be in this moment, but God, guide and direct me in each and every moment, that my life would be so radically changed that people would know that I am serving you. God, I pray that as we leave today, that we would recognize the things that we need to do to be an honorable parent, that we would know the things that we can do to help guide our children in a path of everlasting life. And God, that we would enjoy the long life that you have for us as we honor you and honor our parents. God, thank you for this day. I pray that you would just make it be a wonderful, beautiful day for us to enjoy with each other. God, we love you and we praise you. And everybody said, amen.
Amen. Well, back in the day, Steve Elliott was my boss, and he asked me a question. He said, Kelly, how did you get her? And people have been asking that same question for 23 years. Can we give her a round of applause? Was that not a beautiful job? So as we dismiss today, just a couple things. Number one, ladies, we love you, every one of you. We're so thankful that you're with us and a part of our house. Life Point is the home of many godly women, and we are so thankful that you're a part of this family. We love you. And we pray that all of you feel honored today. On your way out, please grab a teacup. There's a teacups gathered around out here. We want you to grab that, take it home as a gift. It's got a little succulent plant in it just to remind you of the service that God has called us to give to the world around us. Thank you guys so much. Grace and peace. If you made a decision for Jesus, come talk to us today. Have a great Sunday. We love you guys. Bye-bye.